let's get more on this new sentence from a legal expert who can help us put into perspective when it comes to what happens next.
And we're joined again by Josh Ritter, our legal expert. Josh, I know some of this might be redundant to you, but with our audience who's learning this as we go, what just happened today? We've talked about this June 13th parole hearing. What does that entail? And does that mean they could potentially get out of prison on June 13th?
So what happened today is the judge essentially struck the special circumstance allegation that made them ineligible for parole. They had been sentenced to life without parole because special circumstances were found to be true at the time of their conviction, that being, multiple murder, double homicide, and that they were lying in wait. The judge now resentenced them essentially to just straightforward murder, and they received under that 50 years to life. But because they were youthful offenders at the time, they were able to enjoy the benefit of that law, but they were under the age of 26 at the time of the murders. They're now immediately eligible for parole. Now, this hearing coming up, I think, is unrelated to their current parole status. The hearing coming up, I think, is more related to what the governor had been putting in place to have a review done to see whether or not he would consider clemency, which is still at play, by the way. The governor could, at any moment, decide that he's going to grant them clemency, and who knows how this moves the needle as far as the governor is concerned, the decision made by the judge today. But they are now going to be as if anyone who's eligible for parole. They will have a parole hearing. The board will make a recommendation. And if they are recommended for parole, that again is going to end up on the governor's desk. So yes, not immediate release, something down the line. It's kind of anyone's guess when the parole board will actually convene and when the parole board will actually recommend that they do actually get paroled.
Josh, I'm sorry, but I want to ask you about a clarification then. So if this was set up June 13th, prior to what happened today, obviously, just to clarify, what happened today, it can or cannot play into June 13th?
I don't think it's going to play into June 13th. I think what June 13th relates to is remember the governor requested this risk assessment be done, and I believe that parole hearing taking place on the 13th is attendant to that risk assessment. This was the risk assessment that caused the trouble last week where we had to have everything delayed because the defense hadn't received that. I think that's all what's at play here. Now, they're going to have a parole hearing as parole eligible inmates. They've served their time as far as what they needed to serve to become eligible for parole after this resentencing today. And they will then the parole board will then set a hearing on whether or not they can be paroled. And I don't believe that date has yet been set. I believe it's unrelated to the June date.
Oh, okay.
And we were curious about the sentencing. And have you seen a case like this? Is this unique where it has become a lesser and lesser sentence?
It's not unique, but usually that has to do with a change in the law. Usually it has to do with where we've decided, the legislature has said that this law now will be sentenced at a different sentencing scheme than what it was sentenced before. And you'll see in those cases many people coming forward saying, hey, I want to take part in this new sentencing scheme. This was unique in the sense that it came entirely out of the prior administration DA's office. George Gascon essentially took it upon himself to say, listen, we have parole ineligible people but we actually want them to be resentenced. Because the DA was the one who initiated that put the judge into a situation here based upon a new law in California, 1172.1, where he essentially had to find that they've presented an unreasonable risk. And I think the judge today said, based upon all that I've heard, based upon the moving papers and the witnesses who testified, I don't think that I can surpass that presumption, and is therefore allowing for that original request under George Gascon to have them resentenced by striking that special circumstance allegation.
Josh, this is a little tricky here, but in the past, we had heard Hochman say, basically the DA, say that one of his hangups is the fact that they haven't taken full responsibility. They haven't shown remorse for what they have done. Today, we heard, at least secondhand, that they did take responsibility, that they should not have done this. Does this make Hochman the winner or the loser in this case? Because they did basically succumb to what he wanted.
I guess that depends on who you talk to, and I suppose that Hochman's office is is going to find a way to say that, listen, that is what we were hoping for, the statements that they gave in court today, this kind of full acceptance of what they've done and an appreciation for the damage that they caused. But I think this really has to be viewed as a win for the defense, in that Hochman had originally asked to withdraw even that moving paper, withdraw the DA's position on even asking for resentencing. That was denied. Then they said, well, listen, we don't believe that they've demonstrated an appropriate attitude to even be qualified for resentencing. And obviously the judge ruled against that today. I really do feel that the only fair way of viewing this is that it was a win for the defense, in that it was against the kind of strongly taken positions of this new DA in Nathan Hochman.
Well, as always, we really appreciate your input and your knowledge on this. And of course, we're going to have you back as this continues. This case is far from over yet. But Josh Ritter, our legal analyst, and always we thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.